The world just changed. Not with a missile, not with a declaration of war, with a toll booth. The most consequential shift in global energy markets in a generation did not happen on a battlefield. It happened in a shipping lane. And while it was happening, the President of the United States was posting on social media about airport security. 2 theaters, one historic, one embarrassing. And the gap between those 2 theaters tells you everything about where this is heading. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how Iran pulled off the most sophisticated power play in modern geopolitical history without firing a single decisive shot. Why the American strategy collapsed the moment it touched reality. And why this is not just a Middle East story, it is your story. Because if you drive a car, heat a home, or buy anything that travels through a supply chain, what just happened in the Strait of Hormuz is already moving toward your wallet. Here is the question I want you sitting with as we go through this. What is more dangerous? An enemy that attacks you directly, or one that makes itself indispensable while you are looking the other way? Drop your answer in the comments, because what Iran just did is that question answered in real time. Let me take you back to where this started. When the Trump administration launched military operations against Iranian infrastructure, the logic out of Washington was almost elegant in its simplicity. Overwhelming force, rapid strikes, regime shock, quick capitulation, hit hard enough, fast enough, and Tehran would come to the table stripped of all leverage. It was the same playbook used in Iraq in 2003, the same logic applied to Libya in 2011. And just like those cases, the theory dissolved the moment it contacted reality. Iran did not buckle. Iran did what every serious strategist does when outgunned on the primary front. They opened every other front simultaneously. The Strait of Hormuz, the Red Sea corridor, the Houthi network, bilateral diplomacy with every major economy that needs oil to flow. While Washington was focused on the kinetic campaign, Iran was running a completely different war, a quieter war, a smarter war, a war of positioning. And in a resource conflict, positioning is everything. Here is the calculation Tehran made. You do not need to defeat the American military. What you need to do is make the cost of the operation so disruptive to global energy markets, so damaging to American alliances that the operation defeats itself. You make the wound too expensive to keep inflicting. That was the strategy. Simple, patient, devastating. Receipt number 1, the toll booth nobody saw coming. Somewhere in Tehran, an advisor to the supreme leader sits down with Iranian media and describes what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz not as military resistance, but as a business venture. That advisor is Mohammad Mukhbar of Iran's Expediency Council. And the business he is describing is control over the world's most critical energy artery. According to reporting from multiple outlets, Iran began establishing a new permanent status quo for the strait, requiring every passing vessel to pay transit fees to Tehran. Not a wartime emergency measure, a permanent revenue structure. Think about what that artery carries. Roughly 20% of the world's daily oil supply moves through that narrow strip of water. When that artery tightens, the pressure moves everywhere, into insurance premiums, into freight rates, into the price of everything arriving by truck or ship, which is most things, which means your prices. Washington was not consulted. Washington had no coherent response. Iran did not seize the strait with force. They claimed it with public announcements while the other side was too distracted to respond. That is not aggression. That is architecture. Receipt number 2, the client list reshaping the world. While bombs were falling across the Persian Gulf, Iran's foreign ministry was running a full-scale diplomatic offensive. Not defensive, offensive. The Iranian Navy guided an Indian liquefied petroleum gas tanker through the Strait of Hormuz following direct engagement with New Delhi. Prime Minister Modi publicly acknowledged his conversation with Iran's president and emphasized keeping shipping lanes open. That is not a peace statement. That is an access statement. India was securing its energy supply through a channel that bypasses American security guarantees entirely. Then came Japan. Iran's foreign minister announced Tehran was ready to facilitate Japanese vessel passage through the strait, with negotiations actively ongoing. This came immediately after Japan's prime minister endured a White House visit that Japanese media covered as a national humiliation. Japan watched its leader treated as a subordinate, then quietly opened a back channel with Tehran, India, then Japan. As one analyst framed it, if India's program succeeds, other countries will follow. Iran is building a client list. Every country signing up is a country stepping out from under the American security umbrella, one by one, without drama, without asking permission. Receipt number 3, the distraction machine. While Iran was signing corridor agreements with the world's largest democracies, the President of the United States was posting about deploying immigration agents to airports. He attacked a sitting congresswoman by name. He closed with a campaign slogan. That was the wartime communication from the commander-in-chief. Administration allies in Congress called an emergency weekend session. The emergency was not the unauthorized military operation, not the collapsing energy markets. The emergency was transgender athletes in women's sports. That is what the Senate treated as urgent, while Iran was rewriting the rules of global shipping in real time. Here is the deeper contradiction keeping every American strategist awake. While Iran built leverage through its geographic position, the Trump administration had removed oil sanctions on Iran and on Russia. As analyst Danny Citrinowicz explained to NBC News, the United States found itself funding a war against its own interests. The oil revenues flowing into Tehran were financing the very diplomatic outreach, actively undermining the American campaign. You cannot beat geography, Citrinowicz warned, and you cannot beat it when you are subsidizing your opponent's ability to exploit it. This is the moment I need to speak directly to you, not to analysts. To you. If you fill a gas tank, this is your crisis. If you heat a home, this is your crisis. If you buy groceries or anything arriving on a container ship, this is your crisis. If Iran consolidates its toll structure over the Strait, energy costs do not normalize when the shooting stops. They become the new permanent baseline. Infrastructure does not disappear when political temperatures cool. It embeds itself into the cost structure of every industry depending on that oil, which means most industries, which means most prices, permanently. And here is what almost nobody is currently modeling. If Japan and India formalize their arrangements with Iran, if South Korea follows, the American security guarantee in the Gulf stops being the load-bearing foundation of the global energy system. The petrodollar framework underpinning American financial dominance since the 1970s begins looking optional. Once countries restructure their energy logistics around new partners, they do not restructure back when a news cycle changes. The new routes become normal. The old framework becomes history. 3 roads forward, none restore what existed before. Scenario 1 is managed de-escalation. Back channels produce a face-saving arrangement. The shooting slows. But the India corridor, the Japan corridor, the toll framework, those remain. They have already replaced the old architecture in ways that matter permanently. Scenario 2 is the domino realignment. More countries follow India and Japan. A self-reinforcing network forms around Iranian energy diplomacy. The United States remains the largest military power on Earth, but military power and energy system leadership are not the same instrument. America stops being the unquestioned guarantor of global energy security for the first time in 50 years. Scenario 3 is the one nobody names publicly. Facing collapsing approval numbers, Trump escalates further. Iran activates the Houthi network fully across the Red Sea. Shipping insurance rates detonate overnight. Allied governments face forced binary choices. The fractures in the Western alliance system deepen into breaks that take a generation to repair. Every defense ministry in the world is quietly planning for exactly this scenario right now. Here is the final frame. Whatever happens next, the relationship between American power and the global energy order has already changed. Even if a ceasefire comes tomorrow. The lesson has been learned by every mid-sized power watching from a distance. You do not concentrate all your strategic energy dependencies in a single basket, especially not one managed by someone who cannot stop posting through a live crisis long enough to read a briefing. Iran did not start this, but it is converting every mistake the other side makes into durable structural advantage, not with superior firepower, with geography, with patience, with the discipline to let an impulsive adversary defeat himself one distracted post at a time. Did Iran outmaneuver the United States, or did the United States outmaneuver itself? Is what Tehran executing brilliant strategic adaptation, or a gamble that spirals beyond anyone's control? And when history is finally written with clarity, will it say American dominance ended because of a foreign adversary, or because of a president who saw a restructuring crisis and reached for a culture war instead? Drop your answers below. I read every single one. Subscribe now, because the next chapter, Houthi activation, OPEC emergency session, the market shock hitting your gas station before you see it on the news, is moving fast. This story is not slowing down. Do not look away.